Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Thursday, February 25th, 2016. I am Dan Rubin. If it's Thursday in the Gem City, it means there's snow on the ground, the weather is awful. In Indianapolis somewhere, in the really nice suburbs, Steve Wiltfong is on the horn, 24/7 Sports Director of Recruiting, ready to spread some knowledge. Steve, how are you this fine morning?
Good morning, Dan. You're doing better today than yesterday. Yesterday it was raining sideways. Now we just got a little bit of snow on the ground here in the beautiful suburbs of Indianapolis.
Yeah, I looked on my little weather app yesterday, and the entire thing said 100% rain, which I've never seen before, and it was just awful. Speaking of places where it doesn't rain as much, as I segue here, you spent some time recently at the Nike Football Reopening Regional in Orlando, largely because several future Buckeyes have matriculated to IMG Academy, and some other great prospects are down in Florida. There was much to talk about with Ohio State. Might as well start at the top. Westerville native Marcus Williamson went down there. Maybe not with the most fanfare of the group, but certainly put on a show. What were your thoughts on the future Buckeye who has transferred to IMG Academy for his senior year? Or he's there now, the junior.
Yep, he's already down here. He's down here recruiting Josh Kando, the five-star defensive end, every day. Kando said that Williamson tells him if he wants to be great, come to Ohio State, and constantly reminds Kando that Columbus is where he needs to be. But on Marcus Williamson, we named him the top overall performer of the event on 24/7 Sports. He's a polished corner, great feet, outstanding hips. He can run. Not very big. He's 5'9", or not very tall. He's 5'9", but he isn't a shrimp either. You know, has a good build to him, and he's a tenacious player and a hell of a competitor. And he was the top overall performer of the entire camp. One of 7 that earned an invite to the opening. Isaiah Pryor also earned an invite to the opening.
Yeah, I want to talk about Pryor in detail here. He is the Ohio State commitment from Buford, Georgia, who has also transferred to IMG Academy. So you can see a trend developing here. What's interesting about him is he looks like he's originally listed as a safety, and he looked like Sean Taylor back there. Now I'm starting to see some rankings as outside linebacker. What are your thoughts on how he performs, and what do you project him as, and maybe what IMG will use him like?
Well, he's going to play safety at IMG, and I think we may move him back to safety. His time as ranked as an outside linebacker on 24/7 Sports could be short. I put in a recommendation that we rank him as a safety when we update this thing later this week, and he's one of the top 3 or 4 safeties in the country, in my opinion. Isaiah said he's weighed 190 pounds the last 2 years, and he's a lean build, and he wants to play in the secondary, and he's shown every time I've seen him that he can play in the secondary. The first time I saw him was at the Atlanta Nike camp last spring, and then I see him again this spring, and we named him the number 2 defensive player in the next 5 group after Marcus Williamson, and I thought he was really good. But the thing that really stands out about Isaiah Pryor, you talk about a lead by example guy. There's not going to be a guy in the country that leads by example better than Isaiah Pryor. Everything he does he's all hustle, and he has got an old school work ethic. And they were doing defensive back drills, like a footwork drill, where you wait in line and then it's your turn and you do your thing and then you jog to the back of the line. Isaiah Pryor, every time he was done, would sprint to the back of the line. He would cut about 7, 8, 9 people, so he would get around. He got more reps. Just because anytime he was done, he was sprinting around and cutting guys that were jogging or shuffling back. He sprints every time. He's that kind of guy. He's just fun to root for. One of my favorite players in the country. Just a great kid and a great competitor. And there's nothing he can't do. A very physical player. He's a really good wrestler too now. So he's always going to play with leverage. He's tough, and then he's got some good genetics. His dad played at Iowa, and he's a total package.
Seriously, I need to have a drink after that. That was so awesome. Why do you think, if he's only 190 pounds, I will say this, in the pictures I've seen of him, I've not seen him in person and on tape, he doesn't look like he's 190 pounds. And I'll tell you this, and you can comment on this, he doesn't hit like he's 190 pounds.
No question. I think there's that toughness that he has, and that wrestling background, and he's just a physical guy, and he plays the game fast. He plays at a different speed than the others on the field. And look, I certainly not going to argue with anyone that thinks he can grow into an outside linebacker because he could. He's got a long, lean frame. But you talk to him, he says the needle hasn't moved in 2 years, and he says he's always been lean. And then you watch him compete, and he certainly can play safety. Now, if he does grow into an outside linebacker, he's going to be a freaky outside linebacker that's going to be able to cover running backs and tight ends, and he's going to be a guy that can redirect those fast, small slot receivers if you need him to, and then obviously, he's going to be able to tackle those big bruising running backs in the Big Ten. He's a complete player, man. He's one of the top 3 or 4 safety recruits in the country, or one of the top 3 or 4 outside linebacker recruits in the country. You could make the argument for both positions.
I feel a Darren Lee comparison coming on here, but I will avoid doing that. Finishing up with guys in the secondary, Shaun Wade, another prime Ohio State name, not able to work out.
Yeah, he had a groin, so he was just hanging out on the sideline. I talked to Shaun on the side, and he said he's 100% committed to Ohio State, but then he talked about all the other visits he's going to take and said he was going to take officials as well. So, that one's going to be a battle to the end, but he's obviously one of the elite corners in the country. He looked great. Another long, lean, big body corner that just looks different than a lot of the other corners in the Big Ten. And he's an elite talent, and Ohio State, has done a good job to grab his attention now, and it'll be a battle all the way till signing day for him.
Yeah, do you see, I was going to say, this seems like one of those Florida commitments where the kid commits early but is really kind of on the open market. Do you feel that way? Or if you had to drop a percentage on it?
No, I feel Ohio State leads. I don't want to put a percentage on it. I mean, he's going to take visits to some programs that really do a great job of recruiting, Alabama, Florida State. Ohio State's going to have to work to keep him in the fold, but he's at the top of the board for the Buckeye staff, and they know what they're up against. And when you recruit at this caliber, those are the kind of schools that are trying to poach from you. And on the flip side, there's guys at Ohio State's trying to flip from Alabama. Ohio State's working to flip Cam Akers from Alabama. And so it goes both ways. And this is just one of those where it'll be a battle till the end.
Definitely the biggest news coming out of Orlando, or some of the biggest news, is Marcus Williamson getting the MVP award. Sunday morning, you flipped your crystal ball for Joshua Kando, who was also there. We talked a little bit. Another IMG stud, defensive end, who you've written about extensively for Bucknuts and the rest of the network this week. Kando has become kind of a really hot name. Give us, all of your intel on him, why you flipped the crystal ball, and how you see him as a prospect.
Well, I didn't have a prediction in on Kando before Ohio State, so this was my first Kando prediction. Talking to Kando, he loves Larry Johnson and has a good report there. Really likes Urban Meyer. Obviously, what the program stands for is a big deal. And then he's on the same team with 2 guys that are really, if you want to send your kid to Ohio State and you want to know what's in that locker room, what kind of guys are in that locker room, or if you're a young man and you're trying to make your college decision and you're trying to get a feel for the guys that are in the locker room, Isaiah Pryor and Marcus Williamson are, if that's the representation of what's in the Ohio State locker room, that's a fit, and that's a fit for Kando. Kando, those are the kind of guys that, Kando wants to be around. Now, I also recognize that Kando is going to take another wave of visits, and there could be some game-changing visits to be had. But going into this swing of visits, I really like where Ohio State stands. Isaiah Pryor told me he heard it was Ohio State or Maryland. Now, Isaiah Pryor is about as straight a shooter as you're going to find in this class. And so I don't think he pulled that out of his imagination, whether that intel got right or wrong.
Yeah, for those alarmed to hear Maryland at the second team there, Kando is a Maryland native.
Yeah, he's from the DMV. And that's where Larry Johnson's done so well recruiting in his career as well. But I also recognize, talking to Kando, he's very excited about Notre Dame. He's an aspiring doctor. He talks to his Notre Dame recruiter quite a bit, and Notre Dame would certainly be a fit for him. And there's some other, Florida State's going to make him a priority. Alabama's going to be eventually going to probably come into the picture here. If Stanford ever offers, they're guaranteed to be in the mix. Kando's going to enroll early to whatever school he chooses. So these summer visits are going to be really pivotal.
Do you know if Williamson and Pryor are expected to enroll early?
I honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that. I feel like
that would help.
Pryor,
I was thinking. Yeah, there's something that would also help.
Yeah, but with those two, they'll have already known each other so well. Isaiah's a quiet guy. Marcus is the guy that's in Kando's ear, and anyone else's. Teron Vincent's another big-time defensive lineman that goes to IMG Academy. He's a 2018 kid. He was actually my top defensive performer after Williamson at the camp. Big-time defensive tackle prospect. Ohio State's up the list for him as well. And Jordan Anthony, a linebacker. He was in my top 3 defensive performers. He transferred from Good Counsel. Ohio State's a school that he's strongly considering. So Williamson and Pryor, they got some work to do down there in Bradenton.
Yeah, for another DMV clarification here, Good Counsel is in suburban Maryland, the high school of Keandre Jones, the late slip to the Buckeyes. As we talk more about IMG here, how important do you think it is for Ohio State to establish as I look at it, they've got a commitment from a kid from Bishop Gorman. They're chasing Chase Young from DeMatha. They've got guys from IMG. It seems like, while obviously the powerhouse teams have the best players, it seems like they really are trying to establish pipelines at some of the major talent factories, as it were.
Well, IMG is just going to have guys that Ohio State wants every year. So from that regard, sure. But Ohio State, they don't need to have pipelines because you have the most famous head coach in college football, arguably, and you have such a hard-working staff that does a good job of showing a prospect and their family what a priority they are if the young man is indeed a priority. That, Ohio State's they don't need the pipeline. I mean, they just go where they want. They go where the players are. Outside of Louisiana, it's tough to be a player in Louisiana if you're not LSU or Alabama. But any other state, Ohio State's got a shot.
I wish you would have told me that before Rashard Lawrence's press conference.
But that's one of the few guys, if you look at Ohio State's track record since Urban Meyer's been hired, there's great players in Louisiana every year, but that's the only one that they've ever recruited because it was such a huge need, a huge position need, and there wasn't that many mega talents that Ohio State had to recruit him. And I understand people on the Bucknuts board got a little excited, but I know inside the Woody they knew that was a long shot all the way. Now they went in and battled for him, but there was zero surprise in the end where he went, and they felt that way the whole time they were recruiting him.
Yeah, you got to take a shot at the title every now and then. And he was, anyone who wants to go back and watch the film, he was definitely good enough for it. All right, people, we appreciate Steve stopping by. We'll have, obviously, the up-to-the-minute recruiting content on the site, but you also want to stay locked in. The NFL Combine is underway. Steve Hellwagon is a few minutes from Steve Wiltfong right now, working very hard on the Combine. We'll have complete coverage of that. So stick to Bucknuts all day, Bucknutters. Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate you guys.